All right, get ready because we are diving deep today
Dive indeed.
into Stanley Pogro's teaching content outrageously.
Oh, yeah.
You shared this book with me, and I gotta say, even the title itself is so intriguing.
It really is.
Pogro's whole mission is to transform standard lessons.
Yeah.
You know those ones that sometimes put us to sleep?
Oh, okay.
Into
Well,
experiences that really captivate students?
yes.
And the most interesting part is that he argues this actually leads to faster and deeper learning.
And you know what's fascinating is that he didn't develop this approach,
Yeah,
sort of in a vacuum.
right.
He was actually working with underperforming students
Mm-hmm.
when he started experimenting with these outrageous techniques. What he discovered was pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
The same strategies that helped students who were struggling the most
Okay.
can actually benefit all students
Interesting.
and make learning more vibrant for everyone.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
So in this deep dive, we are going to unpack exactly how you can apply these outrageous teaching techniques to make any subject more engaging and effective.
Absolutely.
I mean, from the intricacies of the human body to the beauty of poetry.
It really runs the gamut.
It does, and not just a fun class, but a class where the knowledge really sticks.
Exactly. And it's not just theory.
Right.
Pogro backs up his methods with solid research and tons of real-world examples from classrooms.
That's great.
He's got a really practical framework that you can start using like right away.
I love that.
Yeah.
I was hooked from the very first story in the book.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
It's about a student teacher named Dwight
Okay.
who was tasked with teaching persuasive writing to a group of high school sophomores.
Okay.
Now, you would think that would involve essays and lectures, right?
You would think so, yeah.
But Dwight took a decidedly different approach.
Oh, really?
He walked into the class dressed as a used car salesman.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of pitching a shiny new vehicle, he was trying to convince these students to sell.
Okay. Wait for it.
Okay, stumps. I know, stumps.
That's wild.
I mean, at first I was like, who's going to buy a stump?
I know.
It's got to be a joke, like some kind of elaborate prank.
Right.
But that's the brilliance of it.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about it.
Yeah.
A stump is this completely unexpected, outrageous prop.
It is, yeah.
So it instantly grabs the student's attention
It would, yeah.
and triggers their curiosity.
Oh, absolutely.
They have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So instead of just tuning out during a lecture on the 5-paragraph essay,
Yeah.
they are suddenly leaning in,
Right.
completely engaged,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what this wacky salesman is up to.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dwight uses that silliness as a springboard
Okay.
into a lesson on crafting persuasive arguments.
So he kind of uses that as a hook.
Yeah, he challenges the students to brainstorm all the hidden selling points of a stump.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, how do you make something so mundane sound irresistible?
That's a good question.
Right.
Yeah.
This forces them to think creatively
Yeah.
and come up with arguments that they would have never even considered before.
That's awesome.
So clever.
Yeah.
Such a clever way to flip the script on what could have been a totally dry topic.
Absolutely.
And that's just one example.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, Pogro's book is bursting with these kinds of stories.
Okay, give me another one.
There's one where a language arts teacher gets bitten by a story bug
A story bug.
and transforms into this incredibly expressive storyteller
Oh, wow.
right there in front of the class,
Okay.
bringing the power of vivid language to life
Right.
in a way no textbook ever could.
That's cool.
Then there's the history teacher who,
Yeah.
instead of just lecturing about the Civil War, has his students write letters
Right.
from the perspective of soldiers
Oh, wow.
huddled in a trench at night.
So they're really embodying the experience.
Talk about bringing history to life
That's powerful.
in a visceral way.
Yeah.
How about the science teacher
Yeah.
who bursts into the classroom
Okay.
dressed as Orville Wright,
No way.
claiming to have crash landed
Oh, my God.
from a time-traveling adventure
This is great.
to inspire his students to explore the principles of flight?
Wow.
I mean, who needs a wind tunnel when you have a time machine?
That's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not about being a performer, though, is it?
No, it's not.
It's about using these outrageous techniques strategically
Yeah.
to make the content resonate.
Absolutely.
And as you said, Pogro emphasizes that these aren't just silly gimmicks.
They're not.
They are carefully designed learning experiences
Yes.
that tap into powerful cognitive mechanisms to make learning stick.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why these techniques work.
Okay, let's do it.
Pogro digs into the science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
He calls it outrageous teaching, and it hinges on several core principles.
All right, so unpack those principles for me.
Okay, so what makes this so different from, say, a really dynamic lecture?
Well, one of the most important elements is the power of surprise.
Surprise.
When something unexpected happens, it disrupts our expectations.
Yeah.
And our brains are wired to pay attention to those disruptions.
That's interesting.
Like, think about it. If you're walking down the street and you suddenly hear a loud bang, your immediate reaction is to stop and try to figure out what's going on.
That makes sense.
Our brains are wired to seek out novelty
right.
and make sense of unexpected events.
So when a teacher introduces an element of surprise into the classroom, it triggers that same attentional response.
Absolutely.
Students are suddenly more alert, more engaged, and more receptive to learning.
Exactly.
Because their brains are primed for it.
They're ready.
So it's not just about keeping them entertained. It's about actually making their brains more receptive to the information being presented.
That's right.
It goes beyond just grabbing their attention, too.
It does, yeah.
Surprise also taps into something called the prediction error mechanism in the brain.
The prediction error.
When our brains encounter something unexpected, it triggers this burst of neural activity.
Oh, wow.
As we try to make sense of it.
That's fascinating.
So the brain is working harder to understand the new information, which in turn helps solidify it in memory.
Exactly. And that's not all.
There's more.
Surprise also activates the reward centers in our brains.
Really?
Releasing dopamine.
Oh, wow.
Which makes us feel good.
Interesting.
So not only are students more attentive and engaged, but they're also getting a little dopamine boost, which reinforces the learning experience.
That's fascinating. So it's like you're tricking their brains into enjoying learning.
In a way, yes.
Okay, so we've got surprise.
Yeah.
What else is at play here?
Well, another critical element is humor.
Humor.
Now, obviously, not every lesson needs to be a stand-up routine.
Right.
But even small doses of humor can have a profound impact on learning.
I can definitely see how humor can create a more relaxed and enjoyable learning environment.
Absolutely.
You know, no one wants to sit through a lecture from a grumpy teacher.
I know, right?
It goes deeper than that, though.
It does.
Yeah. When we laugh, our brains release endorphins, which have mood-boosting and stress-reducing effects.
That makes sense.
This creates a more positive emotional state, which is more conducive to learning.
Absolutely.
When students feel safe and comfortable, they're more open to taking risks.
That's right.
Trying new things.
Exactly.
So humor not only makes learning more enjoyable, but it also lowers their inhibitions and helps them feel more confident in their ability to learn.
Precisely.
And research has shown that humor can actually improve memory retention.
That's interesting.
When something's funny, we're more likely to remember it because our brains encode it more deeply.
That makes sense.
Think about it. You're more likely to remember a joke than a dry fact.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's like the humor creates this little memory hook that makes the information stick.
Precisely. And you know what's really interesting is that Pogrow argues these outrageous techniques are particularly effective with students who have struggled with traditional teaching approaches.
Oh, okay. So why do you think that is?
That's a good question.
What is it about this approach that might resonate more with those students?
Well, for one thing, traditional teaching often relies heavily on rote memorization and abstract concepts, which can be very challenging for students who learn best through hands-on experiences and real-world applications.
Right.
So by incorporating these outrageous elements, teachers are essentially translating those abstract concepts into something more concrete and relatable.
So it's not just about making it more concrete.
Right.
It's also about making it more engaging and fun.
Exactly.
Right. Traditional classrooms can feel very restrictive with a lot of emphasis on sitting still, being quiet, and following directions.
Absolutely.
This can be incredibly stifling for some students, especially those who are naturally energetic and creative.
Absolutely.
So for those students, these outrageous lessons provide a much-needed outlet.
They do,
for their energy and creativity.
Absolutely.
They get to move around, be silly, and express themselves.
They get to be a part of the learning.
Which makes learning feel less like a chore and more like a game.
Exactly.
They're not just passive listeners.
Yeah.
They're active participants.
Right.
And by incorporating humor, surprise, and imagination, teachers are essentially speaking their language.
Yes.
They're creating a learning environment
Yeah.
that feels more relevant and engaging to them.
That's right.
So you're saying that outrageous teaching isn't just about making learning more fun. It's about creating a learning experience that's tailored to the needs and learning styles
of diverse students.
Exactly. And this brings us to another key principle of outrageous teaching.
Okay.
Creative authenticity.
Hold on.
Okay.
Before we jump into creative authenticity, I think it's time we take a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll be right back to explore this idea further.
All right.
And delve deeper into how Pogoro's techniques can be applied in the classroom.
Looking forward to it.
Stay with us.
It's about tapping into your students' unique interests and experiences. You know, remember, Pogoro developed these techniques while he was working with students who weren't really thriving in that traditional kind of setting. Right. And he realized that to really get them engaged, he needed to create lessons that resonated with their lives.
Okay. You know, their cultures, their way of seeing the world.
Yeah.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Right.
You really have to be responsive to the needs and interests of the students.
Of the students in front of you.
Exactly. It's about meeting them where they are and using their existing knowledge and experiences as a springboard for learning.
I like that.
Pogoro calls this creative authenticity.
Okay.
It's finding that sweet spot where creativity meets relevance.
All right, I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Yeah.
So you've got the surprise element that grabs their attention. You've got the humor that creates that positive emotional connection.
Right.
And then you've got this idea of creative authenticity that ensures that the content is actually meaningful to them.
Precisely. And when you combine all those elements, something really magical happens.
What's that?
Students aren't just passively absorbing information. They're actively constructing knowledge. They're making connections, drawing inferences, and they're applying what they've learned in these new and creative ways.
So they really own the learning.
They own it, exactly.
So how do we actually put this into practice? Is there like a method to the madness?
There is.
Does Pogoro give us a framework for creating these outrageously effective lessons?
He does.
Oh, good.
He calls it the dramatized content planning method.
The dramatized content planning method.
And it's a step-by-step process that any teacher can use to transform even the most mundane topic into an unforgettable learning experience.
Okay, walk us through it.
Sure.
Where do we start?
So the first step is to identify the specific content objective that you want to teach. What is that key concept or skill that you want your students to really master?
Okay.
Once you have that clearly defined, then it's time to start brainstorming ways to make it outrageous.
So if I'm teaching a lesson on, say, the parts of a cell, I wouldn't just start lecturing about mitochondria and ribosomes.
No.
I would need to find a way to present that information in a way that is going to grab their attention and make them want to learn more.
Exactly, and that's where the fun begins.
Okay.
Pogoro suggests thinking about who you could be.
Okay.
A character, a historical figure, even an inanimate object.
Oh, wow.
The key is to find a persona
that
will allow you to present the content in a surprising and engaging way.
Okay, so in the case of the cell, maybe I could come to class dressed as a giant walking, talking cell.
That'd be awesome.
Right. Or maybe I could channel my inner Miss Frizzle.
Yes.
And take them on a magical school bus ride through the human body.
I love it.
Don't be afraid to get silly with it.
No, absolutely not.
The goal is to create an experience that's memorable and fun.
Yes.
Once you have your persona, you need to think about the setting.
The setting,
Where will this outrageous lesson take place?
Right. You wouldn't want to stay in the typical classroom setting.
Right. So maybe for the cell lesson,
Yeah.
we could transform the classroom into a giant microscope.
Wow.
We could hang up posters of different cell structures, dim the lights, even play some dramatic music to set the mood.
Pogoro talks a lot about
Yeah.
creating an immersive experience.
Right.
He talks about using props, costumes, music,
Yep.
even rearranging the furniture to create a totally different environment.
Wow.
The goal is to transport students out of their everyday reality
Okay.
and into a world where learning is an adventure.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
If you can create that sense of excitement and anticipation, they're going to be much more invested in what's happening.
Exactly. And then comes the most important part.
Okay, what's that?
The storyline.
The storyline?
This is where the real magic happens.
Okay.
You need to take your content objective and weave it into a narrative that's engaging, compelling, and of course, outrageous.
This sounds like a lot of work.
It's definitely a creative challenge.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be overly complicated.
Okay.
PoGrow encourages teachers to start with what they know and to draw inspiration from their own interests and passions.
So, like, for example, maybe you love mystery novels.
Okay, yeah.
Create a lesson where students have to solve a crime using their knowledge of fractions or grammar rules.
I like that.
Or if you're a history buff,
you
could stage a mock trial.
Cool.
Based on a historical event.
The possibilities are endless.
They are.
Don't be afraid to borrow from pop culture.
Yeah.
Current events, even your students' own lives. The more relevant and relatable you can make the story, the more engaged your students will be.
Okay, but what about content rigor?
That's a great question.
How do we make sure that the students are actually learning something valuable amidst all this outrageousness?
PoGrow addresses that head on. Okay. He says that outrageous teaching is not about sacrificing content for entertainment.
Okay.
It's about finding creative ways to embed that content within a memorable and engaging experience.
So it's like sneaking vegetables into a smoothie.
I love that analogy.
You're getting all the nutrients without even realizing it.
Exactly. The key is to carefully align your storyline with your learning objectives.
Right.
Every element of the lesson, from the persona you choose to the activities you plan, should be designed to reinforce the key concepts you want your students to master.
So, for example, if I'm doing that cell lesson and I'm dressed up as a giant cell, I wouldn't just be walking around making jokes. I would be using my costume and the setting to teach them about the different parts of the cell and their functions.
Exactly.
Maybe I'd have them act out the process of cellular respiration.
Okay.
Or build a model of the cell using everyday materials.
It's about finding those creative ways to make the content come alive.
So it's not just a theoretical concept.
No, it's
not. No, he's giving us practical guidance on how to actually implement these techniques in the classroom.
Absolutely. And he emphasizes that it's a process.
Okay.
Not every lesson is going to be a masterpiece.
Right.
It's about experimenting, trying new things, and learning from your mistakes.
So it's about embracing that growth mindset.
It is.
Not just for the students, but for the teachers as well.
Absolutely. And it's about having fun.
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying the process, your students won't either.
Okay, but let's be realistic for a moment.
Okay.
Not every teacher is going to feel comfortable dressing up in a costume and putting on a show.
That's a fair point.
Like, I could see some teachers being a little hesitant about that.
Yeah. And PoGrow acknowledges that he's not suggesting that every teacher needs to become a Broadway star.
Right.
He's simply advocating for a more creative and engaging approach to teaching.
So it's more about shifting your mindset and completely overhauling your teaching style.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to inject a little bit of outrageousness into your lessons, even if it's just starting small.
Like, what could be an example of that?
Well, maybe you use a funny prop to introduce a new concept, or you tell a story to illustrate a historical event.
Yeah.
The point is to start thinking about how you can make learning more fun and engaging for your students.
So it's like adding a little spice to your teaching.
Love that.
You don't have to douse everything in hot sauce.
Right.
But a little bit of chili pepper can go a long way.
I love that analogy.
And the best part is, it doesn't just benefit the students.
It doesn't.
Outrageous teaching can actually be a powerful tool for teacher development as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How so?
I mean, it can definitely bring some much-needed laughter to the classroom.
It can, yeah.
So it goes deeper than that.
It does.
When teachers are encouraged to be creative and to step outside of their comfort zones, it can reignite their passion for teaching.
Absolutely.
It reminds them why they got into this profession in the first place.
Yes.
It helps them tap into their own inner child.
Yeah.
And to remember the joy of learning and discovery.
It brings that playfulness back.
So it's not just about teaching content.
Right.
It's about fostering a love of learning, both for the students and for the teachers themselves.
Exactly.
And in that sense, it's about so much more than just putting on a good show.
It is.
It's about creating a learning environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to be their best selves.
Precisely. And, you know, it's not just about warm, fuzzy feelings either.
Oh, okay.
PoGrow backs up his approach with some pretty compelling evidence.
This is where it gets really interesting.
It does.
Tell us, what does the research say about the effectiveness of outrageous teaching?
Well, for starters, PoGrow has seen some incredible results in his own classrooms.
Okay.
He's worked with students who were struggling, academically and behaviorally. And he's seen firsthand how these techniques can transform their attitudes and their learning outcomes.
So it's not just anecdotal evidence.
No, it's not.
He's got the data to back it up.
He does, and he's not alone.
Okay.
There's a growing body of research that supports the effectiveness of active learning strategies.
Okay.
Which is essentially what outrageous teaching is all about.
Can you give us some specific examples of what this research has found?
Yeah.
What kind of impact does outrageous teaching have on students?
Well, for one thing, studies have shown that active learning techniques can lead to significant improvements in student engagement and motivation.
Oh, okay.
When students are actively involved in the learning process, they're more likely to pay attention, retain information, and apply what they've learned.
So it's not just about getting them through the material.
Yeah.
It's about fostering a genuine love of learning.
Yes.
That will stay with them long after they leave the classroom.
Exactly. And the research goes beyond just engagement and motivation.
Oh, okay.
Studies have also shown that active learning can lead to deeper understanding and critical thinking skills.
Interesting.
When students are challenged to think creatively.
Yeah.
And to apply what they've learned in new contexts, they develop a more sophisticated understanding of the material.
So it's not just about memorizing facts.
It's not.
It's about developing those higher order thinking skills that are so essential for success in the 21st century.
Absolutely. And perhaps most importantly, research has shown that active learning techniques can be particularly effective for students who have traditionally been underserved by the education system.
Okay, that's really significant.
Yeah.
Why do you think these techniques resonate so strongly with those student populations?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
About meeting students where they are and creating learning experiences that are relevant and engaging to them.
Okay.
Traditional teaching methods often fail to take into account the diverse needs and learning styles of these students, which can lead to disengagement and frustration.
So by incorporating humor, surprise, and imagination, and by drawing on students' own experiences and cultures, outrageous teaching creates a learning environment that feels more inclusive and accessible.
Exactly. And the research backs that up.
Okay.
Studies have shown that active learning techniques can help to close the achievement gap between these students and their more privileged peers.
That's huge.
It's not a silver bullet, of course.
Right.
But it's a powerful tool that can make a real difference in the lives of these students.
That's incredibly inspiring.
It is.
It suggests that by simply changing the way we teach, we can actually create more equitable and effective learning experiences for all students.
Precisely. And that's really the heart of Poe Grove's message.
Okay.
He's not just advocating for a new teaching method.
Right.
He's advocating for a fundamental shift in the way we think about education.
Okay.
He believes that all students have the potential to learn and thrive.
Yeah.
And that it's our responsibility as educators to create learning environments that support and nurture that potential.
This is about so much more than just making learning fun.
It is.
It's about creating a world where every student feels valued, challenged, and empowered to reach their full potential.
Exactly. And, Poe Grove doesn't shy away from addressing some common concerns that teachers might have about outrageous teaching.
Like what?
Well, I mean, let's face it. This isn't exactly the traditional approach.
No, it's not.
And he understands that there's going to be some hesitation.
Yeah.
One common concern is whether this approach is actually effective.
Okay.
In terms of content mastery.
Right, because it sounds like so much fun.
It does, yeah.
Some teachers might worry that it's all about entertainment.
Yeah.
And not about substance.
That's a common concern.
Yeah.
But Poe Grove argues that the opposite is true.
Okay.
He says that outrageous teaching can be incredibly efficient.
How so?
Because it engages students so effectively and makes them eager to learn.
They're not zoning out.
Exactly.
They're not resisting the material.
They're actively participating and making connections.
So it's not about sacrificing rigor.
Right.
It's about finding a more engaging and effective way to deliver that rigor.
Exactly.
And another concern teachers often have is about time constraints.
That's a big one.
I mean, we're all juggling a million things.
We are.
And adding elaborate, outrageous lessons to the mix might feel overwhelming.
It might.
Yeah, I could see how teachers might worry that it would take too much time away from the curriculum.
And Poe Grove addresses that head on.
Okay.
He points out that even just 1 or 2 outrageous lessons sprinkled throughout a unit can have a significant impact on student learning.
So it's not about overhauling your entire curriculum.
No, it's not.
It's about finding those strategic opportunities to inject a little outrageousness into your teaching.
Exactly. And he also emphasizes that it doesn't have to be a solo endeavor. He encourages teachers to collaborate with each other.
I like that.
To share ideas and to support each other in developing outrageous lessons.
That creates such a great sense of community and shared purpose.
It does.
It's like professional development that I'd actually be excited about.
I know, right?
And Pogro argues that this collaborative approach can be a powerful driver of school improvement.
He does.
He points out that schools often struggle to address those persistent achievement gaps, and they often resort to more of the same.
More of the same.
More worksheets, more drills, more standardized tests.
Exactly.
The very things that might be contributing to the problem in the first place.
Exactly.
Right.
And Pogro suggests that outrageous teaching offers a fresh perspective. A way to shake things up. And engage students in a way that traditional methods simply can't.
So instead of doubling down on what isn't working, schools could strategically implement outrageous teaching to target those specific areas where students are consistently underperforming.
He gives the example of a school where students are struggling with a particular reading comprehension skill. So instead of just drilling them with more worksheets, the school could develop an outrageous unit that incorporates that skill into a captivating narrative.
So, for example, instead of just having students read a dry passage about the American Revolution, they could be tasked with solving a mystery. That unfolds during that time period, requiring them to use their reading comprehension skills to decipher clues and piece together the evidence.
I love that. It's about taking those skills and embedding them within an experience that feels real and meaningful to the students.
And Pogro argues that this approach can be particularly effective for students who have been traditionally underserved by the education system.
Because it taps into their interests, their experiences, their way of seeing the world.
It makes learning feel personal and relevant.
Exactly. And it challenges those limiting beliefs that we often have about what certain students are capable of.
And he's not just theorizing here.
No, he's not.
He's been in the trenches working with these students. And he's seen firsthand the transformative power of this approach.
He shares countless stories in the book.
Oh, really?
About students who were struggling, who were disengaged, who were labeled as problems, and how outrageous teaching helped them to not only succeed academically, but also to discover their own passions and potential.
It sounds like he's calling for a complete paradigm shift in education.
I think he is.
He's not just tweaking the edges. He's fundamentally questioning the way we think about teaching and learning.
He's urging us to move away from a model that prioritizes standardization and conformity towards a model that celebrates creativity, individuality, and the joy of discovery.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
It resonates deeply with me. But is it realistic?
That's a good question.
Can we really expect teachers who are already overworked and underpaid to take on this challenge?
It's definitely a challenge. There's no doubt about that. But Pogro is not naive. He understands the realities of the teaching profession. He knows that teachers are already stretched thin. And that implementing these techniques requires time, energy, and resources.
So it's not about placing blame.
It's not, no.
Or adding to their burden.
Exactly. It's about empowering teachers. Giving them the tools and support they need to be successful. And it's about advocating for systemic change. For policies and practices that prioritize creativity, innovation, and student-centered learning.
So it's not just about individual teachers changing their approach. It's about creating a culture that values and supports that approach.
Precisely. And I think that's where the real power of outrageous teaching lies.
Where's that?
In its potential to spark a movement.
A movement.
To inspire teachers and administrators to work together. To create a better education system for all students.
So it's about shifting the focus from teaching to the test to teaching for understanding.
Absolutely.
From compliance to creativity.
From standardization to personalization.
Right. It's about recognizing that every student is unique.
Every student is different. Yeah.
Every classroom is different. And that the best teaching is that which is responsive to those individual needs and contexts.
Pogro argues that when we create learning environments that are joyful, engaging, and relevant, we unlock the true potential that resides within every child.
And that's a vision worth fighting for.
It is.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
So before we let you go, I want to leave you with a question that Pogro poses at the end of his book.
Right.
He asks if a teacher can turn a stump into a captivating lesson on persuasion, what seemingly boring topic could you transform?
It's a good question.
With a little outrageous teaching magic.
What seemingly mundane concept or skill could you bring to life with a dash of creativity? A sprinkle of humor, and a whole lot of heart.
And even better, share those ideas.
Let us know.
We'd love to hear what outrageous lessons you come up with.
Let us know.
We'd love to hear what outrageous lessons you come up with.
Remember, the goal is to spark a love of learning. To ignite that fire of curiosity in our students.
That's what it's all about.
And sometimes that requires a little bit of outrageousness to get the flames going.
You know, Pogro really hammers home this idea of creating a theatrical learning community.
I love that phrase.
It's not just about those individual teachers, you know, going rogue and getting outrageous in their classrooms.
Right.
It's about building a culture of creativity and collaboration.
He suggests creating spaces, both physical and virtual, where teachers can come together to brainstorm ideas, share resources, and support each other in developing and implementing outrageous teaching techniques.
It's like a writer's room for outrageous teachers.
I love that.
Right.
Imagine teachers getting together, bouncing ideas off each other, and coming up with these incredible, innovative lessons that they might never have thought of on their own.
I mean, that sounds like professional development that I would actually be excited about.
I know, right?
And Pogro argues that this collaborative approach can be a powerful driver of school improvement.
Yeah, he points out that schools often struggle to address those persistent achievement gaps.
Right.
And, you know, they often resort to more of the same.
Yeah, like what?
More worksheets, more drills, more standardized tests.
The very things that might be contributing to the problem in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
And Pogro suggests that outrageous teaching offers a fresh perspective.
Okay.
A way to shake things up and engage students in a way that traditional methods simply can't.
So instead of doubling down on what isn't working,
right,
schools could strategically implement outrageous teaching.
Absolutely.
To target those specific areas where students are consistently underperforming.
Yes, and he gives a great example of a school where students are struggling with a particular reading comprehension skill. So instead of just drilling them with more worksheets, the school could develop an outrageous unit that incorporates that skill into a captivating narrative.
Okay, so like, for example, instead of just having students read a dry passage about the American Revolution, they could be tasked with solving a mystery that unfolds during that time period.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Requiring them to use their reading comprehension skills to decipher clues and piece together the evidence.
It's brilliant.
Right.
It's about taking those skills and embedding them within an experience that feels real and meaningful to the students.
And Pogro argues that this approach can be particularly effective for students who have been traditionally underserved by the education system.
Exactly, because it taps into their interests, their experiences, their way of seeing the world.
It makes learning feel personal and relevant.
Absolutely, and it challenges those limiting beliefs we often have about what certain students are capable of.
And he's not just theorizing here.
He's not, no.
He's been in the trenches working with these students.
He has.
And he's seen firsthand the transformative power of this approach.
And he shares countless stories in the book about students who were struggling, who were disengaged, who were labeled as problems, and how outrageous teaching helped them to not only succeed academically, but also to discover their own passions and their own potential.
It sounds like he's calling for a complete paradigm shift.
I think he is.
In education.
He's not just tweaking the edges. He's fundamentally questioning the way we think about teaching and learning.
He's urging us to move away from a model that prioritizes standardization and conformity.
Right.
And toward a model that celebrates creativity, individuality.
Absolutely.
And the joy of discovery.
It's a powerful message.
It is. It resonates deeply with me.
And, it's not just about the students.
Right.
Pogro argues that outrageous teaching can be transformative for teachers as well.
I can see that.
He says that when teachers embrace this approach, it reignites their passion for teaching.
Yeah.
It helps them to reconnect with the joy of learning.
It reminds them why they chose this profession in the first place.
Exactly. And it empowers them to make a real difference in the lives of their students.
Pogro acknowledges that there will be challenges.
Oh, for sure.
It's not always easy to be outrageous.
No, it's not.
Especially in a system that often rewards conformity and compliance.
Right.
But he encourages teachers to start small.
Yeah.
To experiment, to find what works for them and their students.
Absolutely.
He says that not every lesson has to be a Broadway production.
It doesn't.
Sometimes a little bit of outrageousness can go a long way.
It can.
It's about finding your own outrageous voice.
Yes.
Your own unique way to bring joy and passion into the classroom.
And to wrap things up.
Yeah.
I think it's fitting to go back to that question that Pogro leaves us with.
All right. What's that?
If a teacher can turn a stump into a captivating lesson on persuasion, what other seemingly boring topics could you transform with a little bit of outrageous teaching magic?
That is a great question to ponder.
It is.
What seemingly mundane concept or skill could you breathe new life into? Yeah.
With a dash of creativity and a whole lot of heart.
Don't limit yourself.
Right.
Think big, think bold, think outrageous.
And if you come up with any brilliant ideas, please share them with us.
We'd love to hear about them.
We'd love to hear what outrageous learning experiences you're creating.
Yes.
In your own classrooms.
Because, as Pogro so eloquently reminds us, the world needs more outrageous teachers.
Couldn't agree more.